Hi everybody, welcome to the first Design Couch event. We are delighted to have you here, so you're very, very welcome. To begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Eora Nation of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather here today. Pay my respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and I'd also like to extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. So, hello, I'm Dee. For anybody that doesn't know me, it's nice to see lots of familiar faces, but I'm the Managing Director and Design Principal here at Freddie, which is a strategic design studio, and we are part of Kablamo, and we primarily design, create, build bespoke software. We are really delighted to be hosting the Design Couch, and this is really an opportunity for the design community to get together to really the goal ongoing is to keep rolling these out and to have an opportunity to learn from other people's perspectives, bring new thinking into our work day to day and kind of just enhance our own craft. I'm pretty chuffed to have Kevin Finn here today. And he's going to bring a very unique mindset of thinking in mindset and how we can actually look to bring purpose into what we do. So it is a delight to have you, Kevin. Now I'm going to give Kevin the intro that he deserves. So Kevin in the field of design is a very big deal. He's a self-confessed risk taker, an internationally recognized designer. He started his career in Dublin, designing the covers of the albums for U2 in that studio. And he was creative director for 7 years at Saatchi's here in Sydney as well. He's the founder, editor and publisher of Open Manifesto, which is an independent design journal where he's interviewed incredible thought leaders. I'll let him name drop them later, but they are pretty cool. He's an author, a TEDx speaker, and he was David Wenham's stand-in for the film Australia. How random is that? So I will sit down now. I might, if I need to prop myself up, let me know. You might not be able to see me in the back, but I am here. So Kevin, hi.
Hello, relax.
Two Irish people having a chat.
Yes, it feels like the Irish Mafia, so apologies. Dee's got a much nicer Irish accent than I do.
Do I?
Mine's softened out. Yeah. So.
Well, you did grow up in Sligo. So.
Yeah, Sligo. Yes, for my sins. So yeah, thank you so much for everyone showing up. I know it's early on a Thursday morning, so and thanks for the invitation to come and have a chat. I think this is a really, really great initiative by you guys. We were talking earlier about the forums that we tend to go to see people, or conferences and stuff, and a lot of that is presentations on stage where the person is talking about what they're interested in, and I always felt that there's an opportunity to have deeper conversations rather than someone standing up doing a presentation. There's value in that, but I think these deeper conversations are really, really important. And I think, leading the way here, there's not many of these at the moment. So I think this is a good initiative.
Cool. Thank you. Well, with that in mind and not kind of presenting your life journey, I'm going to synopsize your career. So you grew up in Sligo in a small county in Ireland.
Yep.
You dropped out of a programming degree to go study graphic design.
Yep.
In Limerick IT.
Yep.
You tried out London. You moved back to Dublin.
Yep.
You worked in New Zealand.
Yep.
And you came here and you landed in advertising and strategy in Saatchi's. You founded Open Manifesto. You moved to Kununurra, a tiny, tiny town in the very top of Australia.
Yep.
You established your own studio, The Sum Of,
Yep.
and you found an organisation called Design Nerd.
Kind of, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, what haven't you done, Kevin? Let's start with something just really, what was the first thing that you've ever designed?
As you said, I grew up in a small town on the west coast of Ireland. I went to a design school for 3 years in the north of Ireland, northwest. So my first design job, if you like, or the first thing I designed was a sort of a menu system for a local hairdresser.
System, I love it.
Yeah. It was a one-page poster, and it was terrible. And I remember doing all of the work, and delivering the work, and then telling them the cost of the work, which was like £35, it's nothing. And then that was my first exposure to the commercial realities of design, but anything, when they looked at me and went, 35, but what? And I should have had that conversation before I did all the work. And I ended up saying that, look, my design tutors have told me this is how much it should cost, which is a blatant lie. And I just needed some kind of authoritative way to tell these people they needed to pay me for my work. But I was willing to walk away and have been paid nothing because I was terrified. But yeah, it was sort of a really poorly designed, important lesson. Yes.
I think that kind of is quite comforting. I'd say any designer here has probably designed something for Sandra down the road.
Yeah.
You know, your mom's friend.
Yep.
Mine was hairdresser Jennifer down the road, mom's friend. The branding was there up until maybe like 3 years ago.
Wow.
It was equally as bad. Anyway, let's get into some of the juicy parts of your career and kind of why we really are here. And we want to talk about the thing called purpose. So there was a pivotal moment in your career, wasn't there, when it started to make you really question design's purpose. And I read that you said, I want to get into what my field is and really pull it apart.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, for context, and I guess to clarify, when I was in Sydney and I was joint creative director of Saatchi Design, I wasn't in the advertising agency. We had a team in the agency, so I wasn't in advertising. I was looking over the fence at advertising, where I learned a lot. It was like my finishing school for design. But we had just won a D&AD yellow pencil. So if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like the Oscars of design and advertising. It's based out of London. Very hard to get, and we just won this award. We were in the agency, my team and I, and we kind of commandeered this long room. So we had an exhibition of all of our work, our best work, to show to prospective clients. We're going to do sort of a PR thing. We also wanted to educate the agency about design. So I was standing there in the room and I thought, pardon my language, I said, fuck, I'm screwed. I'm 29, I've just won a D&AD yellow pencil, I'm joint creative director of Saatchi Design in Sydney, I'm standing around our best work. It's all downhill from here. Where can my career go? It's just, this is it, right? It's a treadmill of this over and over and over again. I can't get out of this. So I decided I'd think of a new career. 29, west coast of Ireland, in Sydney, I need a new career. I peaked, and I peaked way early. I thought if I ever got to this level, I'd be 60 plus, if I was lucky, if ever. So I was panicking. This all happened in the space of a few seconds in this room. And then I thought, well, what would I do? I'd have to start from scratch, and I'm kind of guessing of what I might want to do other than design. And then I thought, well, if I'm not going to move away from design, I should actually go to the heart of design and actually question it. I need to question what it is I do. I need to question why I show up every day. I need to question what my role in this field is. And I need to explore it in a way that I don't get to explore it in my day-to-day job. And I had this idea in my head for 8 years. And this is a lesson for anyone who has an idea in your head that you're saying to yourself, I'm not giving myself permission to do it. For 8 years, I talked myself out of doing this idea. But that day, I thought, I'm going to start Open Manifesto. It's going to be a design journal, and it's going to allow me to explore what field I'm in and why I'm in it and what purpose it has. But it's not going to be designers talking to designers about design, because we've got that everywhere. We need to see where design sits in this intersection of social, cultural, political, and economic issues. Now that today sounds pretty kind of on trend and pretty kind of in vogue, if you like. This is in 2003, when nobody was talking about the economic impact of design, the social impact of design, other than protest posters. And no one was talking outside of our field. So I began with who I knew, who was our field, designers. But the first issue, I said, I need to talk to a young Aboriginal designer who I'd seen in a design school, and we need her in. We need to hear from her. Her friend was a Muslim designer. I need to talk to her because we want to hear from these people. This is back in 2003. I also needed to talk to the sort of giants of our field, and that's when I first got to know Vince Frost, who's based here. So I was trying to get the spectrum of who we're not hearing and who's the leaders of our field, but it was still in the design space. I wasn't a writer, an editor. I didn't know how to interview anyone. I no idea how to run a magazine or a journal, but I thought I just need to try and start. What that evolved into was, astonishingly, me having access to Edward de Bono, who coined the phrase lateral thinking and spent an entire career teaching people how to think and the skill of creativity and thinking. I got to talk to Noam Chomsky. I got to talk to an ex-CIA operative. I got to talk to a real-life cyborg. So the depth that this little journal from the bottom of the world allowed me to explore changed my life. It saved my career, but it changed my life. Now, one of the things that was fascinating about that is, and we've talked about this previously, in the work that we do every day as practicing designers or creatives, we tend to be working with organizations and helping them with their very narrow marketing interests, and that's okay. But what I was lacking in our field, and I think we still lack it, is our ability to be able to explore beyond what an organization's marketing needs requires of us, so that we can bring that knowledge into our work and make it more fulfilling as well.
I think that was kind of one of those practical things that we were talking about, wasn't it? It's like expanding into other interests.
Yep.
And bringing that back into the work, and obviously that sparks stories, innovation, ideas.
And look, it's as simple as, because we were talking about this previously, not I've got all this stuff and I can bring it into the work that I do and it will inform the work. When we're having conversations with the people that we work with, the value of broadening your awareness of what's happening out there is when you're in these conversations and something comes up, you can go, yes, I saw on CNN this report about something that relates to what we're talking about. Or when I was speaking, and this sounds like it's a name drop thing, but I had to qualify it. So when I was speaking with Edward de Bono, he said this, and they go, wow. So all of a sudden, your value goes up because you're bringing knowledge from outside the field that is relevant to the situation that you're working in, and they see you beyond a supplier doing a task for them. They see you as somebody who can bring an informed opinion to the situation at hand that might be in a way that they hadn't thought about. That increases our value.
And actually, as we're speaking about that and increasing the value and having that relationship, you talk about not having clients, don't you?
Yeah. I was speaking earlier about this, that I've struggled for a long time that we're in this client-supplier relationship, and I have a real belief that if we change our mindset and then we get a language that supports that mindset, that changes our behavior. Mm-hmm. So I needed to get into a mindset that was saying, this client-supplier relationship thing to me has always been a problem. So now I say, I have done any clients. I don't want any clients. Anyone comes calling to work with me, I say, if we work together, you won't be a client of mine. And they're like, I don't understand. So I explained to them that, I might stand up for this one. So if you've got client and supplier, this is usually how it works. The client is in control, and the client is saying, we will tell you what we need, and we will take from what you're doing what suits us, and we will guide you because you're the supplier and you're in service to us. And I've always had a problem with that. So now the way I talk is I have businesses that I work with. So I am a business that works with a business. And the mindset that that then produces and the language that that kind of offers is I'm now an advisor to the businesses that I work with. And when they ask me to do something or I offer something and they're challenging it, I'll listen, but I'll say, I'm not going to change it because you've asked me to. You need to convince me because you've paid me and hired me to advise you as a design advisor, creative advisor, whatever it might be. If you don't like it, we can talk about it, but I won't change it just because you've asked me to. And what happens is they treat me differently. They now say, well, probably another way of saying more of a strategic partner than someone in service or supplying. And that, in my mind, what I just said to you now, I tell them. When we're talking initial conversations, I do this. So it sets the expectation. And I then say to them, if that's not working through the relationship, if the best thing that I can do is get out of your way, I'll do that. And I can't afford to, but in your best interest, I'll get out of the way. It's not helping because the advice I'm giving you is not resonating. You need somebody else. I'm not changing it because you just asked me to.
And I think for us, especially, we really co-create with our
Best
people
way
that
to
we
do
work
it.
with.
Yeah, best way to do it.
And I think for up-and-coming designers as well, it's like that collaborative frame of mind is it's often quite scary to be like, take my advice, and that partnership thing comes a lot with experience, but uncovering together, collaborating, co-creating some of that language.
Well, also there's a real sort of practical psychological issue. We were talking about psychology earlier, that clients in that mindset think that they need to be telling us what to do, and they don't. And designers and creators always think we need to have the answers and the solutions, and we don't. How it works is we talk to each other, we collaborate, take down all the walls, take down all the expectations, and say, the businesses don't really know what they're asking and they need our help to figure out what it is they need. And we don't have all the answers, and we do work with them to say, do you think this is going to solve what you need to solve? And all of a sudden, we're a bunch of people working together without these labels and these structures that just get in the way.
Let's shift over to the work that you've recently done with SBS, recently enough. And I think on the surface, going back to this purpose thing, SBS, media industry, good clients, great challenges, exciting work. But I'd love for you to explain to people like why that actually meant a lot more to you.
Yeah, it happened 2008 now, so gosh, a long time ago. But I just moved to Connemara from Sydney, and I happened to be in Sydney for Christmas, staying with my in-laws, and I get this email early January, and it was from SBS, the head of design, saying we'd like to talk to you about doing an identity refresh. I did do a double take and say I got the wrong guy. Like, I didn't know how I'm on their radar. And then I had to sort of go, they don't know where I live, so this is all going to tank. Once they find out I live in the outback, this is going to go nowhere. But they wanted to talk to me, so I had to sit back and think, how do I design this engagement and this interaction with SBS? SBS is amazing, most multicultural broadcaster in the world, a lot of alignment in terms of values. I was in Connemara working with Aboriginal people and organisations, so culture was a big thing of what I was doing. But I didn't want to walk into SBS as the entertainment, the interesting story, and then they were going to go talk to the bigger design studios locally and around the country. I was this little oddball that comes in and makes their day a little more interesting. I needed to really think about how this was going to go. I also didn't want to use the work I'd done before I set up my own practice, so that posed a bit of a problem. I was in business 8 months, and I wasn't going to use Saatchi work, I wasn't going to use work from previous places, so what the hell was I going to do? So I walked in, SBS here in Sydney, head of design, head of marketing, head of production, all the little lovely chats and introductory chit-chat stuff, get down to business. So Kevin, let's have a look at your work. And I took a big risk, and I said, yeah, I'm not going to show you my work. They looked at me and went, isn't that why you're here? Literally, they said that. And I said, yeah. But I'll tell you what I'll do instead. I'll show you how I think. And they went, oh, that's kind of interesting. So I took a project that I'd done for a recruitment agency in Dublin, as it happens, and I literally showed them the presentation that I'd sent to the client, the business. I said I started here, and this, and, you know, the strategic kind of positioning, and then the colours, and it all led to this is the end result, and this is how it's rolled out. And that was a thinking process, and that's the thinking process that is applied to a book cover, a t-shirt, a website, doesn't matter. That's the thinking process, and that's what I bring to the process, to this project. And I remember they sat there quietly and they went, yeah, we understand how you think. We like how you think. This could work. So the point is, we need to, first of all, look at every situation that we're in and try and flip it and see, is there another way to do it, number one. Number two, we've got to look at what is it we're selling, okay? We're not selling outputs. We're selling how we think. We're selling the value of our informed opinions. We're selling what we bring from our life experience into a situation. And we're also selling how we interact with people on a personal level. The result of that is the outputs. And the kind of lesson that I learned in that was, oddly, thinking in this situation is way more tangible and objective than outputs which are subjective and are beholden to a whole range of other circumstances that you don't see in the end result. So if we can sell how we think and the value that that brings, our offer to who we're talking to is, we will bring that to this project or this situation. Does that fit with you? And they, within 2 days, gave me the job. Now, there was other factors which are important to pull in. They had 5 criteria that I learned. Number one, they said, again, oddly, I took a risk to go to Connemara, leaving Saatchi Design, leaving Sydney, living the outback, pre-COVID, working from the back of a back room in a house, at home, in a town of 4,500 people. Next urban hub is an hour flight in either direction. Talk about remote working, we were remote. So I thought, that's a real no-no for someone like SBS. One thing they said was, you live in regional Australia, that's a huge part of our audience base. Criteria 1. I had no idea that was going to be a benefit. Number 2, you work with culturally sensitive content. You work with Aboriginal people and businesses. We're the most multicultural broadcast in the world. Number 3, you used to work at Saatchi Design. Saatchi's, you come from good stock, so you know what you're doing. I was like, okay. Number 4, you do this thing called Open Manifesto. We talked earlier about the value. They said, you are exploring your field in ways we haven't seen other people do this. That's interesting to us. And number 5, they said, we are not looking for an agency. We are not looking for a studio. We are looking for a high-end designer who can plug into our design team and work collaboratively. Now, of those 5 things, 2 are what you would expect. 1, you want to plug into our team, and 2, you come from good experience, good stock. The other 3 things, which I didn't think were valuable, were on their list of criteria. So the lesson there is, we need to explore things that other people will see as valuable if they're interesting to us. We shouldn't not do them because we don't think they're valuable. And we should also promote the fact that we're exploring these other areas, doing these other things, because we bring that to the work that we do.
there's so many leads here, but I'm going to jump to I think the thinking side of stuff. So, like as designers, we're always embedding design thinking. We're always looking at how the difference between designing like an object and designing context and services and jumping from analytical to design thinking. Tell us about Edward de Bono and what you've learned with design thinking. I think it's really important that you share that.
Yeah, Edward de Bono was really interesting because I was a fan. I read a lot of his work. I knew of him, and again, it was really interesting how things can happen. I got a project with a paper company, and they said we want to do this paper brochure and the usual samples and stuff. And I said, yeah, how about this paper sample is going to go to every design studio in the country. And they're probably going to do what I do with paper samples. I put them in the cupboard and I never look at them until I kind of need them. How about we create a resource? So we talk to some of the best people in the world and we use your paper, and then it becomes a book, and they put it on their bookshelf, not in the cupboard. And they went, okay. So I got in touch with Edward de Bono's management company and said, this is before I knew him at all, would Edward do the forward? I hope so. And they came back and went, yeah, he will. I thought, we're off to a great start. I got in touch with Terence Conran. Would he do something to write an essay, do an interview? Yes, I love what you're doing. This is great. Oh, fantastic. Then I got an email from the paper company. This is great, Kevin. What we're planning on doing is taking some quotes from what you're doing, put them on paper samples, and put the rest maybe on our website. And I said, we're done. Keep your money. I had to go back and apologize to Terence, who was devastated. I had to apologize to the CEO of de Bono Global and say, this is pull the pin, this isn't happening. I said, okay. So I'm in a real sort of disappointed space, is a polite way of putting it. And at the end of the engagement with the CEO of de Bono Global, Amanda said, hey, look, just on side, we're looking to do an identity sort of system for Edward's work. Do you know any branding designers? And I went, oh, should I say I'm one? Is that bad? Should I let other people? So I said, look, I know many, and I can give you a list, but I also do it too. Can I put my hand up? And she said, yeah, sure. Long story short, she called me up and said, I've got one name on my list and it's yours. Let's work together. Now, through that, I ended up talking to Edward about a whole bunch of stuff, and I asked him once, what was his definition of design? And his response is the definition I use today and have used, and I tell the people I work with. And his response was, design is deliberate. No matter what we're doing, if we're going to create an outcome, we are making deliberate decisions to an outcome. Sometimes those decisions are done subconsciously, but they're deliberate in action. Sometimes they're lazy, but nothing happens by accident, so we're deliberately choosing the lazy path. So when I'm talking to businesses that I work with now, whether it's talking about an identity or an impact model or what their purpose should be or challenging their purpose, I tell them that Edward told me design is deliberate. And they see that as a much easier way to understand the world that we live in, because they get scared often by creativity and these woolly dots that we join, connect, and these colors that we think they should do. So I set the whole thing up and say, because design is deliberate, every decision that I make will be deliberate. Every decision that we collectively, collaboratively make to move forward will be deliberate. And you're on that journey with me. This goes back to the collaboration of working with people. So with Edward's work, I think he's the forefather of design thinking. He's not always seen that way, but he is. And I learned with working with him a way to talk about design and creativity in tangible terms that doesn't scare off or have other people dismiss what we do as subjective.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more we could talk about that, but that's the high point. And I know we've got to finish by 10.
No, that's cool. There's something in all of everything that you're talking about where you are finding purpose in the work that you do and the values that that adds. I really wanted to, we haven't really spoken about this that much, but you have two pretty strong statements that you stand by, don't you? I'd love for you to explain those and then see if there's a way, like tell us how you came up with them, how we might be able to come up with our own statements.
One comes to mind, but I've got many, so...
Oh, do you want me to tell you the ones I'm
tell me
talking
the
about?
ones that you were talking about.
Right.
Purpose and impact?
We don't have time to fuck around,
yeah.
and life is a gift.
Yeah. I'm going to first go with one that isn't...
Sorry
one
for
of
the
those.
F-bombs.
No. I'm going to go with one because we talk about purpose a lot, and that is very much in the kind of creative spectrum. It's sort of a bit vague and woolly and feel good, touchy-feely. There are a lot of organizations that go, yeah, that sounds great, but it's stuck on a poster in a boardroom and doesn't really come into what the business does. So I tell people that purpose is really important, but it's only half of the equation here. And I say purpose is motivational, whereas impact is measurable. Now, if you have a purpose, that gives you direction in where you want to go. And then you can measure it by the impact that it has. So your impact has direction. If it's just about impact, it's scattergun. It doesn't have that guiding purpose that will take you there. So they need to work together. And again, this comes back to language. And it comes back to language where when we're working with the businesses that we work with and the collaborators we work with, we need to give them the language that they can understand in their terms why we're talking about these things. And we're talking in the business world and you're talking about impact. They're also talking about other metrics that they want to see what the impact might be. And they'll be commercial and they'll be revenue driven and they'll be profit driven. But if it's then built in around purpose, you can see you can do both. You can have purpose with impact and it'll still help you with your bottom line for these reasons. So again, the language helps. And I'm very clear about that when I work with businesses, because purpose is this kind of, it's also unfortunately been shoved into the woke basket, which is a slang word for dismissing an equitable world, which is ridiculous. Oh, it's all woke because they all want to be diverse and equitable, and that's not a bad thing. So moving away from that language into tangible terms for them, that's kind of the underpinning of this. Where the phrase that you just referenced came from was, and some of you might know this, but 10 years ago, I lost my mum to breast cancer. And I remember seeing her in the lead up to this, and I thought, she's 64. She plans for the future, right? So we never know how long we have, no matter how old we are. And I remember seeing her and I thought, what am I doing at work and what am I doing with my work? I want to do something that is meaningful. And meaningful is as wide as the diversity in this room. Whatever meaningful is to you, we should be doing that. And I remember sitting there saying, we don't have time to fuck around. We don't need to get a job for a job's sake or a project to get a project's sake. We need to be as selective as we can about the work that we do in order to get meaning in our own life. Otherwise, we're just ticking through the days, getting the job done, getting paid, on to the next thing, and I'm right back in that room at Saatchi's going, I'm on a treadmill. So I need to do the work that I think means I'm not fucking around with my time. Now you might think that that's a bit abrasive, that language, and it's intentional. Design is deliberate. I deliberately use that to remind myself of the urgency of what I want to do with my day. When I'm talking to the businesses that I work with, particularly in the early stages and in the first maybe contact, the first email or the first conversation, I will tell them that. I'll tell them that story. We lost my mum. we don't have time to fuck around. If we're not doing something meaningful, we'll just pull out now. And what happens is they go, of course we're doing something meaningful. Yeah, we do meaningful work. I said, great. So we set the standard from day one. If we decide on day 15, actually it isn't very meaningful, guys. So either one, you've lied to me, I can say this, or two, shall we get you to a more meaningful place? There's your choice, because we've set it up. A few years later, we lost my dad to cancer. So again, it was like, I realized that life is a gift, and we shouldn't squander it. So that really makes me, in the day-to-day work that I do, and I'm not rich, okay? I'm not in a position where this is a place of privilege, but I am what I call unusually selective with who I work with. That doesn't mean sometimes in my business I've got to take a project that isn't as meaningful as I would like to, and I say that is a means to an end. That is keeping the lights on, that's keeping me going, but the majority of what I do needs to make me feel like I'm not fucking around with my time. So they're the very strong things that come from that purpose space.
Cool. I think that shift in language is actually, it's light and it's powerful, isn't it?
I have a thing where, we go into organizations and we might be talking about transformation and change. It scares the shit out of everyone. They're like, that sounds expensive and that sounds disruptive. There's something else I prefer to talk to them about. I call them micro shifts. And the way I describe it is, we can create a long-term impact here that doesn't disrupt everything right now. So I'm going to use my hands here, if we use transformation, we're off in this direction, big upheavals. But if you're going this way and we do a micro shift, we could do this. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but over time, you get to where you want to get to. So again, it comes back to language and explaining that to reassure people that what we want to achieve and what we want them to achieve and what we can advise them is going to be in their best interest to do, we can use language to help them go, this is less daunting, this is less scary than what we thought, and it sounds like you can help us get there. And for a visual designer, quite strange that I'm actually a word person, I'm a language person, because that sets up where we need to go. Mm-hmm. So that's these micro shifts when it comes down to language.
Yeah. So I suppose, really, where are we heading next?
Yeah, there's a really interesting, a couple of things I want to talk about on this, because it really comes down to what we talk about, the purpose and the impact space. We were talking about this earlier. There was a research done in the US a couple of years back. It was, just before COVID. It was a very wide ranging research across sectors, age groups, and they found that it was about meaningful work. They found that of all the people that they talked to, and there was like a lot of people, 9 out of 10 said they would rather have meaningful work and forfeit future earnings than not have meaningful work. That was a core, 9 out of 10, cross sectors. And the researchers were like, wow, that's pretty amazing, but that's easy to say. What do you mean by meaningful work and you would forfeit future earnings? How much are we talking about here? And as it turned out, when they went with the percentages, it was 9 out of 10 people would forfeit 23% of future earnings to have meaningful work. And they said this is really interesting because, particularly in the US, the majority of people spend 22% of their income on rent, accommodation, or mortgage. And here people are saying we will actually forfeit 23% of our future earnings to do meaningful work. It's that important. So we have signals and trends heading in that direction. So that's a big kind of, it's America, and okay. Now let's go back to Australia. A couple of months back, the ACCC did a report on 257 companies who were promoting their environmental credentials. And they found that 53% of them were either misleading or lying. And you might go, oh, shame on you, marketing spin, slap your wrist, whatever. But the ACCC, a government body, is saying we are going to investigate those organizations. Not because they're lying and they're saying, this is greenwashing. They're investigating them saying, this is an unfair advantage to the 47% of businesses who are telling the truth. And they said that 47% have invested time, energy, money, resources to get those credentials, and the 53 haven't. So that's unfair. We need to go after you guys because that's not fair in the market, right? And you kind of go, yeah, good, yeah, great. But what they found in that report, and this comes down to where things are heading. In this investigation that they were doing, they've learned that 60% of Australian consumers and purchasers are making purchasing decisions based on environmental criteria. 60%. So if you look at the 257 companies that the ACCC was investigating, they're all aware of the purchasing decisions, so they're all talking about environmental credentials. 53% of them are saying, let's just say what we need to say to get that market. Now, if they get exposed through ACCC or through their actions and behaviours or through someone finding out and talking about it on social media, there's many ways they can be exposed. They miss out on 60% of the market. As a business, that's over half the market. So we talk about relevance. If you're not relevant to 60% of the market, your business is in trouble. So the signals that we're seeing, the needle is shifting over into the direction of not only meaningful work as employees, we're looking at impact-driven consumer behavior. And now businesses and brands are in this position where if they're not in the impact space, they're heading off two fronts. The first front is we might not be relevant to the market, to our customers and our consumers. That's a big issue. But we're also in the war for talent. How do we attract the best and the brightest to come work for us if we are not in the impact space? If we're not doing this, how do we retain them? Because they will work for somebody else who is. So on both fronts, businesses and brands are now either seeing or are forced to have to make these decisions. Now there's a little, if you want some way to talk to businesses about this, there's a little equation framework that I use. And I have learned from experience that it has shifted the business decision makers into this arena. I said most of the time businesses will work on the model of we need to grow revenue, we need to make money, we need to have profits. And with those profits, we'll do all this good stuff. And some other not so good stuff. But that's what we do. That's the model. Make money, do good with the money. And I said we need to flip that. If we put an impact model at the center of an organization, impact equals relevance equals return. Now, as we said, 60% of Australian consumers and purchasers are making decisions around this impact space. Scale that across the world. It's happening everywhere. So if you have an impact model at the center of your business, you become relevant to that large proportion of the market. If you're relevant to that large portion of the market, they will transact with you. Now that transaction will either be money, it could be time, attention, profile, whatever. But the impact is at the start, not the money. Impact equals relevance equals return. You take that, what the return is, and you put it back into the impact. You grow your impact, you grow your relevance, you grow your return. Why this is resonating with the business people I'm speaking with is there's an economic model to that. When we talk about return, they say bottom line, revenue. I see. It is a pathway to increase their return. So I have this maybe fanciful, ambitious view that ROI in the 21st century is going to shift from return on investment to return on impact. And we can see that in terms of where things are going. We can see that with statistic after statistic and data after data, that this is where things are moving. I believe our job is to work with the organizations who need to be in this space. We don't need to work with the organizations who are already there. Awesome. We need to work where we're needed most. And I think our task is to work with businesses and brands and organizations to help them understand that if they move into the impact space that is underpinned by purpose-driven work, they will, one, win the war on talent, and two, have an economic model that they can work towards. They can grow, they can remain sustainable as a business. It moves us away from the high moral ground, self-righteous, tree hugger, left-wing, judgmental sort of stance that we have been put in previously. And it moves us right into the boardroom, into a position where we don't become designers or remain designers. We don't become suppliers or remain suppliers. We become valued advisors to the businesses and brands who will shift the needle. We won't. We can't create impact in what we do, really. We can only work with the organizations to help them make the impact, because they will scale that impact, and collectively that moves the needle. So that's where I see where things are heading. That's where I see the data is heading. And I think that's where, to be quite honest, if we look at AI, we're in trouble with AI, and it's going to take out a whole raft of what we do. We need to move into the space of valued advisor to organizations who can help create impact in the world, and then AI is a tool to do that. Experiences are a tool to do that. Whatever we would normally be involved with, interfaces are a tool to do that. We need to elevate what we do into this impact space, because if we don't, we're screwed, I feel.
Thank you. I think you've wrapped it up really nicely. I was thinking about the different types of designers that we've got here, from being in e-com to being in product service, like actual services, and even consultancies and things. I feel like as designers and design thinkers, we can start shifting that language and that like idea today with our clients, with the CEOs of the companies that we're working for. So thank you.
And find your own language too. That's the other thing. Find ways that you feel more comfortable talking to these people, and let's try it out.
Cool. I think we've probably got time for like maybe one question or two questions. Julia, I'll hand you or you can probably talk about it, right?
Thank you for the talk. It was really interesting, and especially the impactful talk resonates with me. And I have a bit of a personal question. So you have business, you have clients, you have different projects, you have family, you need to learn something new, you need to teach someone. How do you manage those things? Because those are really impactful, and you can't just get rid of one of those. So do you have any secrets, magic?
I'll be honest, I have a team of 28 people who do this for me. I'm just kidding.
No. They're just acting.
Yeah. I don't have a support team, so I'm doing all this myself. It's not like I can sit here and go, this all sounds good, and when I go back to my business, other people do it. No, I live and breathe this every day, and I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy. When I made the decision to be unusually selective with who I work with, I made the choice in the knowledge that there's going to be a difficult transition period here for me, because one, I need to position myself in that way, and two, I'm going to say no to a lot of things, and that's not going to be easy, and I can't afford that. So I didn't just pull the band-aid off and go, yes! I made the choice. If there was 10 projects, one of them had to be in the impact space. One of them had to be in a meaningful space. But they could be 2, then could be 8, and then could be 10. Right? So it wasn't like I was just going to say, I've changed, everything's changing, that's it, because I will be out of business. There is no point in all of us sitting here in Utopia saying we want to change the world if you don't have the money to keep the lights on, because you will end up working with somebody who doesn't have your values, and you'll be frustrated in that job. So you just need to make those transitions in the best way you can, so you get the projects that are meaningful for you, and then you try and grow that. How do you grow that? When I was at Saatchi's, we had a visit from a gentleman called Bobby Shood, who at the time was the worldwide creative director of Saatchi & Saatchi globally. He came into our studio, and my co-creative director was really keen to show our portfolio and kind of impress him a little bit, and I was just really interested to see what Bob was going to say. So he's a very interesting man. We used to call him Planet Bob, because he was on a little planet. He was like, just totally, yeah, he's amazing. But he came in and he sat down, he went through our old school portfolio, portfolio book, and he was very quiet. He went through it all, and at the end he went, it's really interesting. Yeah, right. My co-creative director, bless him, he wanted to put in all our most creative work, because this is Bob, right? He's the creative director of the entire agency, globally. And Bob said, there's a lot of really creative work in here for small arts organizations and charities and stuff. I don't think you can make a lot of money in those things, so you're obviously not showing me the work that you're also doing. And also, I don't think you can run a business on the money you would make in these creative projects. And his advice to me, which is my advice to you, if you're looking to do more meaningful work, or you're looking to do work that is in the impact space, or if you're looking to do work in any kind of way at all, Bob said, only promote what you want to get more of. Now, we have a tendency to say, let's put every friggin' project we've done, because it shows we can do UX and shows new typography, we're really good with color and whatever it might be. And you'll get more of that stuff. And then you'll be like, can you make that impact? And they go, no, we want you for this stuff that you're showing us. So I stopped showing work that I didn't want to get more of. And if that's one project, that's enough. If you don't have any projects, you do your best to get any impact project at all, even if it's working with a local charity organization, or if you want to do work for pro bono, because the other thing is when someone looks at your website or the work you promote, they've got no idea how much you charge for that. If you got paid, how much you got paid. So you just say, this is the work that I want to do, and then you have discussions around this is what it costs, and this is what I can bring to it. And then you promote the next project, and you just promote what you want to get more of. I also think you've got to make really quick decisions. So my day is crunched, because I do all the drop-offs and pickups with our son, and I do all the after-school activities. So my day starts, I go to the gym in the morning. My day starts at 10 and usually finishes around 3. And I find I can do more work in that period of time than 12 hours or 10 hours, because I'm doing things outside of work that are engaging me. And when I get to work, I realize that outside of work, I've been thinking about stuff. And I get to work and I go, I know how to do this. I just get through it. And I make decisions as fast as I can. And if I need help, I put my hand up and I dip into my network and say, who can help me? There's lots of ways you can do that. Structuring your day, but the baseline, I would say, is only promote what you want to get more of. Whatever that is, maybe it is type work, I don't know, maybe it is UX. But whatever it is,
only promote what you want to get more of. And then the other thing is lean into a skill that our field is usually good at but really needs to embrace: the ability to make decisions. Procrastination drags your day out. Doubt drags your day out. And when I present work to the businesses that I work with, I don't say, here's a solution. I don't say, here's this finished. I say, here's my language, recommendation. What do you think? Let's talk about it. In my Saatchi days, God bless them, they used to sell. This is the solution. You don't like it? Let's sell harder. Let's let's convince you. I don't do that. I just say, here's the work, a recommendation. I put it to one side and say, let's talk about it. I also do not present options. I don't know if you guys do. I present one idea at a time. And the reason is that I say, this is the recommendation I have as your advisor. Based on the information I know, is there anything that you see is a red flag or that's missing? Let's talk about it. If I've got to get new information, the next recommendation is much narrower and much more focused. If that's missing something, new information, the next one is laser focused, because they're coming with you, giving you information along the way to get it closer to where you need to get to. If they say to you, but we need options, that's how we work, that's our system, it's our policy. I go, great, okay, I'll present an idea. And I say, so this is where we got to. I let it hang. But that didn't work because, that I could see there was a problem here. And then that led me to the next idea, which is this. That didn't really work either because there was a problem. And then that led me to the recommendation. So I just bring them on the journey to the recommendation, and I call the first two options. And one of them recommendation. That's a kind of a long answer, but does it help you in ways that might answer your question? A little bit? Okay. If not, get me afterwards.
It's 10, and I know a lot of people need to get to work, so I just want to thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks, guys. Yeah,
Thank you, everybody, for coming. And we will be in touch with the next event. Please come back and please share if you know who you would like to hear from next. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.